How's it going, guys? It's Billy here, and in today's video we're going to be doing an update video actually to a previous one where I upgraded my daily video editing PC. Now if you guys want to know what I was rocking previously and what I'm rocking now, be sure to check out the description below. I'll leave a link to that video, and I'll also leave a link up in the card above as well. Now the primary goal of this build was essentially to make my Adobe Premiere experience a lot smoother because, as you can see from this video itself, it's done in 4K, and I just wanted to make that experience a little bit better overall. I mean, it was okay, but I found even just timeline scrubbing a little bit choppy with my current system. And the secondary reason was I actually wanted to start doing more PC streaming and PC game streaming rather, and also like PC game recording. And I found at times that sometimes my CPU usage was getting a little bit on the higher end, and sometimes the video when it was being captured would be a little bit choppy, and even my gameplay experience would be choppy as well. So just going from a 4-core, 4-threaded CPU with 8 GB of RAM to a 6-core, 12-threaded CPU with 32 GB of RAM even make a difference in those two scenarios? Well, I'm happy to confirm that it does, but let's go over some benchmarks first, both real world and synthetic. First up on the benchmarks is 3D Mark Firestrike, and just an FYI for everybody out there, both of these were ran at stock settings. My old CPU and my current one both start at 3.4 GHz, and my new one turbos up to 3.6 and the other one up to 3.8, but let's see if that'll even make a difference. Now my old system had a score of 11,557 with a physics score of 5,795 and a combined score of 5,591 on 3D Mark Firestrike. So how did the new system fare? Now just remember that this is the exact same GTX 980 Ti in both of these systems. Now the new system had a total score of 14,784 with 15,506 on physics and a combined score of 7,134. Now from these initial results, we can already see an improvement in the 3D Firemark score with substantial gains in the physics department specifically. So will this hold true for the rest of the benchmarks? Well, let's find out, and we're going to be moving on to Unigen Heaven's benchmark 4.0. So the Unigen Heaven benchmark was ran at 1440p for both systems on high quality with tessellation disabled. Now before the upgrade, the old system did admirably with an average FPS of 102.8, a minimum of 9.1 FPS, and a maximum of 211.3 FPS. So overall, it scored a 2,591 score in the Unigen Heaven benchmark. Now the new system, on the other hand, did as well as I thought it would. So the average FPS actually rose to 112.7 with a minimum FPS of 26.5 and a maximum FPS of 248.9. Score-wise, it totaled in at 2,838. So overall, we've seen an improvement by about 8%, but the biggest gain was definitely in the minimum FPS score. So next up, we turn our attention over to the Cinebench R15 benchmark. Now, will the additional cores and threads help in this one? Let's see. Now, our original rig scored a modest 102.56 FPS in the OpenGL test, while receiving a 504 Cinebench score overall when it came down to raw CPU performance. But when we switched it over to the new components, the FPS gain was decent, going up to 115.19 FPS, but the most substantial gain was in the CPU score. It more than doubled to a whopping 1,087 CB score. As we can see here, this is where having more cores and more threads made the biggest difference. Now we're going to get to a real world benchmark when it comes to actually video editing in a moment, but I also wanted to cover the SSD change to the 950 Pro first. Now this is my very first venture into the whole M.2 SSD sphere, and I have to admit that I'm super excited about it. Now the Samsung 950 Pro, it's a tiny powerhouse from what I've read online, and I wanted to experience this for myself. So I ran Crystal Disk 5.1.2 on my original 500GB Samsung 850 EVO, and of course the new 256GB Samsung 950 Pro, and this is what we got. Now the 850 EVO is no slouch, netting read speeds in the 550 megabytes per second for both sequential read and write, but the 950 Pro really shines by quadrupling sequential read speeds and nearly doubling sequential write speeds. That's absolutely absurd. I already thought that the 850 was quick, but this is just ridiculous, and I'm really glad that I went with the 950 Pro. Alrighty folks, we finally have gotten here. We've got our real world benchmark in rendering a 4K video file in Adobe Premiere CC 2015.4. Now, was this $1,000 upgrade really worthwhile? Here's where we find out. So I rendered the same 5-minute 4K video file under identical settings, which are 45 megabits bitrate on a VBR1 pass under H.264. So our original rig was able to render the file in 14 minutes and 46 seconds. Now our 6800K powered rig was able to do it in 13 minutes and 12 seconds. So that's a difference of 1 minute and 30 seconds, which might not seem like a lot, but if you're rendering a lot of files over the course of a lifetime of the system, it could add up to hours being saved. Now, this isn't much of an improvement as I expected personally, but perhaps a modest overclock could also aid in this, as Premiere is notorious for higher clock speeds rather than more cores and more threads actually working towards that. Now, not only was this upgrade supposed to reduce my render times, which it did, I wanted to also capture PC gaming footage more smoothly, and I definitely noticed when I switched over to the 6800K. Now, capturing footage while playing no longer resulted in choppy gameplay, or even choppy capturing to that matter. And in all honesty, I can attribute this to the additional cores and threads being able to make this a much smoother experience, and that's probably where the biggest takeaway for me for that was that. So overall, was this the improvement that I was looking for? In all honesty, I was hoping that it would improve render times and everything else a little bit. Perhaps this is going to be something that software-wise has to be done, perhaps on Adobe's end, to take into consideration things like more cores and more threads, because as I mentioned earlier, it's notorious for higher clock speeds being more successful, especially on the rendering process. So I'm hoping maybe a software update in the future can perhaps fix that. But for me, as I mentioned, I want to be capturing PC gameplay footage, and with the additional cores and the additional threads, that has definitely improved that, at least on my end that I've noticed. My gameplay isn't as choppy, A, and B, even the footage that I get in the end isn't choppy as well, because sometimes I would notice when there was a CPU kind of throttling or something happening, that even the in-game footage that I captured would be choppy as well. So that has definitely improved overall. So is it worth $1,000? Let's say if you guys are coming in from a system and you're not going to be doing any video editing or video rendering or anything else like that. No, I don't think it's worthwhile to be spending at least that much on there overall. But at least for my case, if I'm going to be noticing, varying degrees of time saved while rendering, and especially my gameplay footage being smooth after that, for me, it's worthwhile when it comes down to it. But for you guys and your needs, it might not be that way. Anyway, guys, I hope that you learned something new today. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to press that thumbs up button. But if you didn't, be sure to press that thumbs down button instead, and let me know what I could have improved on by leaving a comment in the comment section below. Otherwise, though, thank you very much for watching today's video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.